There's, Mr. Bell, you all right?
Ken, how are you?
Wayne, Leslie makes me dress up when I go to one of these things.
I didn't hear you.
Leslie makes me dress up when I go to one of these things.
Leslie makes
can't.
him dress up.
Leslie,
Hear everything you're saying now.
Leslie makes me dress up when I go to one of these things.
Oh, she does.
It was intended.
Leslie
Was it-
makes you dress up.
It was entirely intentional.
You can hear it all the way out there. That tells you how bad my hearing is.
Well, now we know the PA is on.
It works. We do have people signed up for politics.
So, we're not gonna do that.
What?
We're not gonna do that. Close.
No. No, we're not going to close session.
Good. Good.
No, we thought we might have a lease
In the United States, since 2005 to 2018, there were 471 recorded dog bite fatalities. 63% of those were due to pit bull dogs. Virginia has had 3 fairly high-profile incidents. 2017, 90-year-old woman was killed by a pit bull in front of her daughter. It was a dog they had just adopted from a pit bull rescue, told that it was safe. Within 6 hours, she was dead. That resulted in a $5 million lawsuit aimed at the rescue. The next year, 31-year-old woman, Hampton Roads, killed by her own pit bull. Earlier this spring, a woman and her children were in Virginia Beach. They had a little dog on a leash, and a loose pit bull killed that dog. The dog ran off when they started to scream. Obviously, the police tracked it down, captured it. She was, I don't know exactly, she was drunk, the woman. Anyways, so that being said, I feel that we have an incident or a situation very close to the community I live in. Another member of the community is here, Donna. She's going to speak about the havoc that a particular individual in this town who owns multiple pit bulls that often run loose have caused in our community of retired folks. Okay? I worry about that, not only for the safety of the 30 to 40 of us that live in the community. And I am an animal lover. I have had a lot of experience over the years when I was in practice with these types of dogs. And I'm not trying to be I'm going outside of political correctness here, let me put it that way. I do believe that these dogs are different than your Labrador retrievers, your golden retrievers, your beagles. I won't get into that, but I've had a lot of experience. They've been bred for hundreds of generations to do a job, and we all know what that job is. And that makes them highly reactive, and you don't know what's going to trigger them. That being said, this individual that has these dogs has been cited multiple times, taken to court multiple times, and nothing has happened. He's been fined. That's it. Things have changed because now those dogs have killed, and that's going to change things. But it's my experience with these dogs, once they kill, they are extremely dangerous. I have a little dog. I don't even like, we're 25 yards from the creeper trail in Rye Park. One of the things that triggers these dogs is children running and squealing, little dogs at dark. These are the kinds of triggers that will trigger any dog to some degree. But my little dog of 20 pounds is not going to kill anybody or another dog. That's why I'm worried. This is kind of a tourist town. There are people, I pass them all the time on the trail with my dog, little kids, little dogs, elderly people, and they're in that park running all the time. There's all kinds of things going on in the park and on the trail. And I think that if something happens, it's not going to take too great of an attorney to figure out that this person has been cited over at least 10 years, multiple times. I think it's having a pet, having an animal, and I've had everything from chickens, horses, dogs, cats, etc. It's a right that we have, but you can abuse that right. And I believe this individual has abused that right. And I think that it could have big implications. If something happens in this town, it's going to go beyond this person, and it may reflect on the community. So thank you. If you have any questions, glad to answer them. I am not what I, kind of a semi-expert witness. Know a little bit about genetics and animal behavior. Do you have any questions?
I have a question. Can I ask?
Yeah, maybe.
How many dogs does this individual own, do you know, roughly?
At least 4.
And what was killed? What did they kill? And how many dogs have killed?
Don, let me speak to this too. There was a domestic cat in our community. This was in front of our mailboxes. It was on our property. A domestic cat was killed. There were witnesses. They're taking him to court again. And I think that's in early November. But I wanted to bring it to the attention of this group, because you guys, this is the town council. And I think that's something to think about. Because I know already twice in this fall, he's been taken to court. My neighbors, and they called me because their dog was traumatized. Their little dog slipped away from, one of the pit bulls. It shook it, but the dog slipped away, which it would have killed him without a doubt. We're talking about a little Yorkie. And they were traumatized. They called me. I took my stethoscope, thermometer, even though I'm retired. And I saw 2 very traumatized dogs. One dog could barely breathe, cyanotic, and 2 elderly people that were very traumatized from this incident. They took him to court, didn't show up, got fined again. The dogs came on their property again. They built a fence, 2 of them, 80-year-olds, building a fence, post hole diggers, to try to separate their property. They live right above us, they're members of our community. Literally, there's a pathway down, I don't know if Don is gonna talk about Eldersbury. You've got a very unique, interesting community in Eldersbury here. And all of the members volunteer so much for so many things in this community. It's a nice resource for the town. But yeah, that's what happened, and I think things will finally change now that a domestic pet has been killed. It could have been, many people, when they see their little dogs attacked, they will hold them. They will pick them up and try to hold them. And I have been involved with one incident like that. Young woman, was a student of mine, severely bitten. Her dog ripped away from her and killed, eviscerated. I tried to get in between it and almost got eviscerated myself. So, it's something you've really got to think about. And I don't know what else to do. There's a bunch of people that are, Donna can speak to that.
Ma'am, I have one quick question. As I understand it, animal control is basically the county's responsibility. Have you exhausted all of your?
No, because I've only been here a year. I just assumed this was the place to come. I went online, found this, and it said public comment, so I thought, great, I'm in the right place.
Well, I think we have another speaker that can address that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Donna Soderquist.
Thank you. Donna Soderquist. My address is 114 Trailview Drive in Abington. I live in a community of 40-plus people from the ages of 64 to 94. The people that Terry was speaking about, they're in their 80s. They are, one thing that she didn't mention is they have now put their house on sale because directly as a result of fear from these animals. They're selling their house. They want to be part of our community, but they're selling their house from fear of these animals. I've been impacted by these animals 3 times since I've lived at Eldersbury, which has been about 18 months I've resided there. The first incident was when somebody came running to my apartment, my home, which is close to the mailboxes. They were afraid because The pit bulls were running towards a resident who was at the mailbox, which is on private property. This is privately owned property. And the dogs ran towards her. They didn't do anything to her except create a huge amount of fear in her. She was defenseless. She froze. And then there was another lady out there who is 78 and she has Parkinson's. She can't run. If the dogs would have done something. So a lot of this is about prevention. We are here because we need your help in preventing a catastrophe. We feel that it is on the verge of a catastrophe. As far as answering your question as to what has been done, animal control has been involved with this for several years. We feel that most of us at Elder Spirits feel that we have not gotten the response that could be adequate to control these animals. I have the law here. I posted it out. I'd be willing to pass it to you. These dogs, although they've been off leash, run all over the. One time I got a call from animal control. They were found over at Dairy Queen. Now Elder Spirit is over on Lowland and up in that on the other side of town, and that's a long day. So they had gone to Kroger, gone to Dairy Queen, and somebody found them over there. This is not just affecting Elder Spirit. This is the community that it's impacting. I really feel like it's a time bomb waiting to happen. And again, as Terry had stated, he has been fined several times. I believe now he is in contempt of court because he did not show at the last incident where the two people who are now selling their house in their 80s had taken him to court. I also have a letter from a previous resident who lived in that same house who moved away last year. And these people have only lived in this house for 1 year, just I think less than a year. The residents before that moved. They had chickens on their property. The dogs had eaten their chickens. The latest incident that had happened on our property. A couple of residents were traumatized by the event, and I don't use that term loosely. One lady was quite hysterical. She witnessed and is still waiting for the subpoena from animal control to go to court to talk about this incident for these dogs to be deemed dangerous dogs. Hopefully the law says that once they're deemed dangerous dog, they need to be tagged and they also need to be spayed and neutered. This would be a beginning. I don't know what else, maybe not allowing him to breed pit bulls anymore, that could be a solution. Taking them out of his just taking the dogs, if they're spayed and neutered, then he can't, I think he's treats the dogs fairly well, but he also lets the dogs kind of do whatever they want to do. If the dogs want to go to Dairy Queen, they can go to Dairy Queen. If they want to go to Elder Spirit. Anyway, I did witness this cat, the companion animal, afterwards, and it was sad. I was there while the cat was dying, soothing it. So it's hard. And we all have small animals. We are fearful. We are fearful. It's gotten to the point where we're not concerned anymore. We're scared. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I had just one quick question. Have you contacted your supervisor? You have a county supervisor who represents you on the Board of Supervisors. Have you all contacted them about this matter?
I don't know what the Board of Supervisors is, and I don't know who the board
It's a governing body. You're go ahead, Al.
Washington County has typically taken the lead in the animal control business here.
Mhm.
So the town has no real ordinance of its own in regard to animal control because it relies on the one that the county has. And the county has animal wardens to take care of these things.
And I've spoken
So,
to the animal.
I would suggest you talk with the animal wardens and the
Several
county
times
and
I've
the Board of
talked to them.
Supervisors member for your district, and maybe the Commonwealth Attorney.
Pardon me?
And maybe the Commonwealth Attorney,
Oh, okay.
who's an elected official.
Don, I followed what the
Um, But I think I would also like to say that we're you know, we're happy, not happy, but we understand and we're interested in what's going on. So
Okay,
I
thank
appreciate
you.
you filling us
Thank
in,
you.
the two ladies.
How do I get can I go on a website to get the name because I'm in contact with Bobby, Deputy Bobby
It's a good time for you to contact
Justice.
them because there's an election going on.
And I voted yesterday, so,
Ultimately, animal
So-
control is supervised by the sheriff.
Washington County Sheriff, yes.
Oh, good, okay.
Sheriff Newman.
The sheriff's who you need.
We've
Thank
done,
you, Chief.
we've done, I contact Bobby, Deputy Bobby Justice, who is the animal control person. I contact him on a weekly basis, and he's given me the information. And it is a slow, gradual process. That's my concern, is that it's a slow, gradual process. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank
you.
you for coming.
Can you help me with that, Gary?
Mr. Freeman's on the, but we'll take you up at that
The agenda.
agenda item.
Oh, okay. Next speaker is Stephen Jett.
It's my understanding that the deer bow hunting issue is gonna be coming up at this council meeting, is that
Yeah,
correct?
we're gonna be
Yes.
talking about that.
Okay, well, I'd like to read a statement in connection with that, if I may. This is an amended version of a statement I gave to the council some time back, about a year ago. But since the issue is up again, I'll reread it with a few emendations. Owing to the elimination of predators such as cougars and wolves, the deer population now exceeds sustainable limits. Deer consume crops, can carry disease, and can be road hazards. Therefore, we do not oppose, I say we, and my wife is on this statement too, that appropriately regulated hunting in rural areas. However, we feel that the activity should be confined to the unurbanized county, which would continue to supply replacement deer if hunting came to be undertaken in the municipality, thus offsetting in-town culling. Much militates against the proposal to have bow hunts in populated residential and commercial Abingdon, and many questions remain unresolved. What evidence is there that urban bow hunting succeeds in significantly lowering deer populations long-term? Do we want our small-town beauty to be diminished by deer hunting stands popping up here and there? Would young children become unwilling witnesses to the killing or wounding, even field butchering of beautiful and innocuous animals before their very eyes? How would Abingdon's visitors react to such a scene? What if a wounded deer were to flee to a property on which no permission to hunt has been or will be given? Would that property's residents be obliged to deal with the agonies of a maimed or dying deer on their doorstep if they choose not to let the hunter onto their land to dispatch the animal? What happens to that buck if the landowners are away and cannot accord permission? The consequences of hunting cannot be confined to participating properties and can negatively impact nearby non-participating residences and businesses. Likewise, since deer do not confine themselves to single properties, killing them on one person's land would deprive deer lovers pleasure in seeing them on their adjacent lands and would cause the surviving deer to become shyer. It has been suggested that the venison could be used to feed the hungry. How would meat inspection statutes be adhered to? What mechanism would be established to distribute the meat? Who would pay for all of that? Yes, deer nibble on our garden plants. At least some of us feel compensated by these animals' wild beauty. In any case, before considering hunting as a solution, we should look at workable bloodless deer control alternatives. These include prohibition of putting out feed for deer, use of net and other fencing, planting known deterrent plants around gardens, and use of ultrasonic and olfactory repellents. The last can be prepared at home or be purchased. A brand new and also effective, if expensive, municipal approach is immunocontraception, which involves tranquilizing and injecting does every 2 years. We urge rejection of urban bow hunting in favor of taking no action or of applying one or more of the alternatives mentioned. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Sigrid Phillips.
Good afternoon. I'm a resident of Abingdon. I have lived here for 46 years. I came here, my husband and I came here for a job interview, and when we got off the highway, 81, the next thing that I saw was the sign, this tall sign that said bird sanctuary, and it had the picture of a cardinal on it. And I said to my husband, this is where I want to come. And we did. I'm not going to say very much, and it's not going to be scientific, but I, for one, enjoy the deer that come on my property. I am fortunate enough to have a wooded area in back of my house that is shared by it's kind of a square area, and there are streets on every side. And I, for one, enjoy very much watching these deer, following their family life, their seasonal family life when they raise little ones. I have let my property grow up within control, but it has grown up, and I have purposely done that so that these deer so that I can watch them and that they have a safe area to be. But they go through the area, through my neighbor's area, also areas of backyards, and I have yet to meet someone in my area, in my neighborhood, that does not thoroughly enjoy these animals. So call me a tree hugger, but that's what it is. I love them, and I do not want them to go away. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Tree Hugger.
Ms. Tree Hugger, could you tell us what your address is, please?
445 Circle Drive.
445 Circle Drive. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay, that concludes our public comments. Thank you all. New business, we have an update on the sports complex. Mr. Stevie Steele is going to speak to us. Mr. Steele is from CHA Design Construction Solutions.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor Craig, council members. With the transition to a new and exciting stage of the sports complex, staff and engineers felt it appropriate to address council members. So if you get questions about where we are on the process, as cold weather's moving in, appears that activity is slowed down, let you know where we are, why that is occurring, so that you can appropriately answer questions as you receive them from your constituents. So with that, we've had a very successful field placement last month or month and a half. As all of you are well aware, probably the driest that it has been in quite some time, which was a blessing. The soils were very challenging, but with the help of a very good geotechnical firm and Baker's Construction, we were able to do a very good job placing fill to meet compaction, to meet industry standards. We have placed all of the settlement monitors at this point, which total 12. They're placed in various locations based on where we're going to have different facilities. For instance, we have them placed where the concession stand will be constructed. We have them placed in parking lot areas. We have them placed in future sports field locations. All of those will require different levels of settlement verification, so we wanted to make sure we could treat them all separately if we need to. To date, we have been tracking those settlement monitors for 4 weeks, and the most settlement that we've had is 0.02 of a foot. In the soil world, that's tremendous considering the challenges that we had out there and the material that we had to work with. So I think that already is a testament to the amount of detail that we've spent on a very visible location that many of you receive concerns about large boulders and soupy material. we did a good job, and I will toot my horn a little bit on that, because it's pretty challenging. So we came to you with a very innovative plan. You stood behind that. It's done a very good job to provide a good quality product for the town to this point. Having said that, we do want to watch that settlement for a few more weeks. I believe that as much energy and effort is gonna be put into this facility, this needs to be correct. And I say that because if folks in the community see that the machines have left and there's no buzzing about, obviously somebody will make up a story in the absence of facts. That's just how it goes. So we need to make sure they understand, no, everything's just fine. It's right on plan. We are gonna be resurveying that property now that we're very close, so that I can have sub-inch survey to do my utility plan finalization. When that happens, the unit pricing that you already approved, we'll be able to go right into that with Baker's and begin utility work. So the plan moving forward hasn't changed much from what I presented to council earlier. However, weather is something I cannot control. So as we move into this next season, if we get 4 feet of snow that stays on the ground from November to February, that's obviously gonna give us some challenging utility construction. I don't think that's gonna happen, but as we start to get certification from each of the areas from the geotech, and I have something in file that I can provide to council, and somebody says, why are you investing money putting pipe in the ground because this is a challenging site, you can say, no, we've got masters of their craft that have certified that it's good. And so when I have that information, we will start the utility work. Directly behind that, we will be still planning in early spring to bid out the rest of the work, which would include the fields, fences, roads, parking, etc. So, in a nutshell, the utility work and the weather will drive how quickly we get to the next piece of the project. Any questions about any part of it that you're getting questions about that I can help you to answer better?
Mr. Seal, I think you said you were gonna, monitor the sedimentation out there for a few more weeks. You have, how many weeks? How long is it gonna be?
If we can get very little movement for a 4-week period of time, I'm gonna feel pretty confident. We needed this rain more than anything because I haven't had a chance to see how that area is gonna react under a ½ an inch of rain, because we just haven't had it. Moisture content, settling, all of that is kind of an interactive piece. So I get a couple of different conditions, I'll feel even better that I'm not gonna get caught off guard with something later.
Thank you.
If I remember my soils correctly from 60 years ago,
You probably had to taste it at that time.
It's all changed
They
since
made
then.
us roll it around in our mouth to figure out whether it was a sandy silt or whatever else.
the majority of the settlement will occur in a fairly short period of time.
Correct. Consolidation should occur pretty quickly.
Okay.
We were able to get 98% compaction on almost all of it with the efforts that council approved us using to modify soils and dry soils and things of that nature.
Okay, the only other question I've got, I want to make sure that I know the council wants to give the public the correct information, and I appreciate you giving us the facts, because we have a shortage of facts in this town sometimes. What you're telling us, I think, is that you're going to survey topographically, verify the grades that are out there
Correct.
now. And then you're gonna design the utilities,
That's correct.
and that's gonna be complete sometime this winter or?
I would say, once I get surveyed, 4 to 6 weeks, I'll be ready to turn the contractor loose.
And then you're gonna begin the utility construction,
Correct.
and that should be, the best you can tell, depending on the weather, that should be complete by spring, and then
That's-
you'll be ready to bid
That's right.
the sports complex.
That's correct.
Okay.
And in a perfect world, we would bid it while the existing contractor was on the tail end of their work. If they want to bid on that, they are welcome to, and if they're already on the site, and that means we can experience some savings, and so be it. If another firm from outside is hungry and they would like to get in the game and give us a better price, then we'll let industry drive that piece of it.
Okay. Council, any other questions? Thank you very much, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is discussion regarding unopened right-of-way. Mr. Bell.
Yes, sir, thank you, Mayor. I believe that Bob Bremen is here from the street law firm, who represents Dutton Wagner. Mr. Bremen, if you would come forward, and Mr. Vinsel, if you want to come up here and help drive some maps, I think we might be able to look at it. As, I'll let you go ahead, just as brief background, as I'm sure you all know, Dutton Wagner has some property, multiple parcels, near exit 14. There's some entryway off of Route 11 into that property that Dutton Wagner has asked, basically the legal status of this road, driveway, unopened right-of-way, and asked whether, if it is publicly dedicated right-of-way, whether the town would consider abandoning it to Dutton Wagner, but I think he's got some more background for you.
Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you very much for having me today. Mr. Bell is correct. Since 1966, my clients have been on this property. I think in 1988, the county rededicated this particular unopened right-of-way back to the town, and it's been kind of in a nebulous posture ever since. We are asking that the town take steps to abandon this unopened right-of-way and transfer ownership of it to Dutton Wagner. We've always maintained the property, we've always cleared the property, we've always fixed the property, and it's, if you will, liken it to your own driveway, it leads to our house. It's what our customers, our vendors, our delivery people, our employees use to get to the various aspects of our property. We've been a strong egg producer, one of the strongest in southeastern United States. We have been a good resident of the county. We try to pay our taxes on time and do all those things that the town requires of us. The only use that this unopened right-of-way is being put to is for us to access our property. And because of that, we're asking that the town take what steps are necessary. If a public hearing is required upon resolution, schedule and conduct that public hearing, but otherwise take those steps necessary to allow us to own our driveway.
Mr. Bremen, can you orient us to, there appear to be two entryways off of Main Street there into the property. Which portion are you talking about, and all of it, or part of it, or what?
I believe we're talking about the portion that comes right in front of that white car. I believe we're talking about this portion here.
Okay.
Yeah, a little long.
Yeah.
Right.
Is that?
Okay, so what's shown here is information that we get from Washington County. So, this area, and I don't know if you can tell, like, there's a little triangle up there. You see that triangle underneath 1110 West Main Street? That indicates that they have insufficient information and or conflicting information about this property. And so I can't verify where exactly the right-of-way is located, and I would ask too, do you have a plat of the property, a current plat of the property?
I do not. Whatever you all need, we can furnish.
I would think that we would need confirmation on the location of the right-of-way and a plat showing that right-of-way so that we can make better judgment of what is being request that.
So we're
The
not
town
talking-
the town has a formal process for this, right? That,
Yes.
Tyler, you know about, and you can help this gentleman get started with it, and.
Yeah, I think this is the first step in that process. I
Okay.
think before what we had done was we had the petitioner kind of approach council first to see what what their idea might be for going through the process. And if you all wish to take the next step, then he and I can work together to come up with everything that we need to get it going.
Virginia code is very specific about what steps are involved and how you do it.
Yes,
And the process is designed to follow those steps.
correct.
I think what Tyler's asking is, does he want us to, do we want him the staff to proceed with that process that you're talking about?
I say
And
go forward.
just so I'm clear, we're not talking about the road that goes past Enterprise Rent-A-Car. We're talking about looks to be a right-of-way, but in actuality, at the moment, it's just, looks like a parking lot
It
and
was
part
right
of
to the main warehouse, yeah.
Okay.
Do we know, just a matter of interest, do we know why the right-of-way is there? We annexed it, is that correct?
Yeah, this was an acquisition with the 88 annexation, so I don't know.
You don't know what
I
it
don't
was.
and I researched, I don't have any information as to why it existed prior to
You
that.
don't know of any use that it would be to us, or to the.
No.
Well, it's an old subdivision that was developed under the county, before the county had subdivision regulations, and there are thousands of little tiny 25-foot lots back there, and open right-of-ways to serve those 25-foot lots. So it's, it's very much like Tyler and this gentleman are representing.
All right, y'all want staff to proceed with this?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes.
Derek? Okay.
And that clarifies things for me, Mr. Raymond, I appreciate that, so, yeah, we
But
will work on that.
Yeah, you just work.
a survey, if they have one, would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
Wait, I just have one quick question. I can't see it on the map. Where's the sign for their Dutton Wagner sign? Isn't that the road that comes, I go down to Dutton
big
Wagner
chicken?
quite often, but I can't see it.
The big chicken sign?
Yeah, the big chicken sign.
Well, give me some eggs next time you're down there.
I'm going to,
Cindy, I think it's right down there at the corner across from where the white car is.
where that white, okay. I just can't see it. Okay. Thanks.
Anything else, ladies and gentlemen?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is unfinished business, consideration of award of a contract for engineering services for crosswalk at Russell Road and Ray Petty and Foster DeBose baseball fields.
Thank
Tyler
you.
Bensel.
Yep, thank you, Mayor, thank you, council. So the town, we sent out, well, first of all, I'll preface by saying that we received funding from VDOT to do a project at Russell Road at the baseball fields, under the, I'm pretty sure it's the PSAP process, which is a pedestrian safety, grant funding application. And so we were awarded funding, and we are currently in the VDOT phase of acquiring an engineer to do the design work. We've been authorized to enter into that phase of the project to get an engineer on board, and once we have a plan that's approved, VDOT will authorize us to enter into the bid and construction phase. So we sent out an RFP for this particular project, and we had to do it specifically for this project because this has some federal dollars in it. And VDOT required a specific RFP to go out. And so we sent that out on the 30th of September. We had 5 responses to that proposal, request for proposal. The staff has reviewed and scored those, and we have selected the Lane Group. And we are requesting a motion to authorize the town manager to enter into competitive negotiation with the Lane Group for engineering services and to execute an agreement for said services.
Okay, council, any questions of Tyler?
I'd like to move to authorize the town manager to enter into competitive negotiations with the Lane Group for engineering services and execute an agreement for said services.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Quich, a second by Mr. Bradley, is that right?
Yes.
Second by Mr. Bradley. Any discussion?
Glad to see this moving.
Mhm.
Okay.
Good job.
And the deadline for, that we put in the RFP for response for the completion of the engineering is November the first. So we will
Wow.
try to move before the end
You
of the
better?
year. Yeah.
Okay, Kim, call the roll.
Whoa.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Ms. Quetch?
Aye.
Mr. Webb?
Aye.
Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
Mayor Craig?
Aye. Thanks, Tyler.
Thank you.
Better get moving, Tyler.
Hurry.
Hurry up every inch you get. Next item on the agenda is consideration of award of contract for tennis court resurfacing and repair. Mr. Kevin Worley, Director of of Parks and Outdoor Recreation for Abingdon, Virginia.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Mayor Craig and members of council. We brought this before you a couple months back where we had a bid for the project. We did the tennis courts and pickleball courts, and the bids came in well above the budget. So we revised the scope of service and re-advertised, and in re-advertising, we actually had 3 bidders come in. The bids came in from $68,000 to as low as $35,006. And we've reviewed these bids and think that the best course of action at this point is to award the bid to Court 1 for a bid total of $35,006. They will actually come into the, and Mr. Lester will work with the Coon Center staff to come in and set up a timeline and a work schedule to go ahead and get that work done at the Coon Center, which would be to patch all the cracks using a better technique than what we were originally looking for. And then they will repaint all the courts, resurface those, and there will be some additional fencing and everything done as part of that, as the project. So at this point, we would like for the council to authorize the town manager to execute any and all documents related to the project, so that way they can go ahead and move forward.
Is that was the low bid, is that?
The low bid is Court 1 at $35,006.
What's $6 for?
I know. $35,000, you think you just thrown in $6, right? But yeah, that's what it was, so that's what it came out to be. And we had several options within that we could look at within it, but that's where the best options are.
Any questions of Mr. Worley?
I'd like to know why there was such a big price difference. I mean, accordingly, I mean, I know you all always say this is what kind of material we want,
Sure.
and this is what kind of material we're gonna get, and it's all the same specs. That's quite a bit of a
Sure, and
jump.
I'll give you a quick answer on that. Some of the bidders that came in weren't able to do that work directly, and they had to have additional subs to do that, and so the cost of them to have additional subs to do some of the work of the fencing and some of those things was a direct result in the cost being elevated. We've actually been able to work through some of this some of this we'll actually do in-house ourselves with Public Works and in conjunction with town staff. So the $35,000 actually gets everything we need done and completes the project that needs to be done at the rec center.
And this is just the tennis court resurfacing and repair.
That's correct.
And what about pickleball?
Well, I'll entertain that whenever. I think this is, you need to kind of, I think we need to
Do this
address this.
first.
Oh, this is a spider coming down the
I
side.
got a visitor,
Yeah,
could somebody?
literally.
Wayne?
Your friend came to visit.
Here we go.
You thought I was kidding that there was a spider coming down from the
No.
ceiling. There really was.
No,
And Cindy saw it.
And
But
the
no,
spiders that down beside
That's
her.
exactly right. And, but I think this, I'll talk to you about the pickleball after this.
Is this the tennis courts on Court Street?
No, the tennis court's at the Coon
At the
Center.
Coon Center.
Coon Center, okay.
The 4 courts there.
Okay.
Good. As a matter of explanation to council, frequently there are a wide disparity of bids, and sometimes, and a lot of times, it's because contractors, when they first get a set of plans, they get other work, and then they're not able to do this, but they put a bid in that's high, just kind of as a courtesy and a means of getting their deposit on their plans back. So the bid is meaningless because they have other work, so.
Yeah, and to make sure that that their
It's
name
not-
is out there, the next time we send something out, that we will send something back to them again
Right, that's
to bid
exactly
on it.
So,
So
don't be alarmed by disparity of bids, is my advice to you.
So the name of this company is Court One?
Court One.
One.
They did the last
Where-
resurfacing for us, didn't they?
Court Works did the last one.
Oh,
This
Court
work, this
Works.
company is actually, we've bought supplies from them in the past for some of the projects, so we're familiar with them as a company.
Where are they from?
And Derek, do you remember, where's Court One from?
They're out of North Carolina.
North Carolina. Yeah, they're out of North Carolina, but I don't have a
That's okay.
copy
That's
of
okay.
them. But they are in North
I
Carolina.
was just curious, it's not a big
Okay,
deal.
any other questions? Okay, what's your pleasure on the matter?
I move, Mayor, that we go ahead and award the contract for the tennis court resurfacing and repair to Court One for $35,006, and to ask Mr. Morani, authorize him to do all the necessary paperwork that he needs to do to do the contract.
I'll second that.
Motion by Ms. Patterson, second by Mr. Webb. Any discussion? Kim, call the roll, please.
Mr. Bradley.
Aye.
Ms. Quetch.
Aye.
Mr. Webb.
Aye.
Ms. Patterson.
Aye.
And Mayor Craig.
Aye. You wanna talk to us about pickleball?
Yeah, and also I want to thank Mr. Lester for his work, because he's been very diligent on trying to put this bid package together, get this sent out, get it back, retabulate, and it's been have to do this twice. So I appreciate him and the engineering department of town taking care of this.
Is this facts now? We don't have good facts around here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What are you giving us facts?
Just the facts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's done an excellent job with that. We do have funding in place for the work at the community center. And in speaking yesterday with Mr. Morani and Mayor Craig, we were talking about this. We need to come up with an agreement, a lease agreement between the town and the community center for us to go on site to build the concrete pad necessary to put in the pickleball court. And Mr. Morani asked that that the council authorize him to start talking about that process and working with Mr. Bell to get that in place. And then once that's in place, we'll bring that back to you for approval. And then we will look at moving forward with doing something at the community center. Right now, with the way the season is and the weather, probably likely looking at a springtime project, but because there's probably not gonna be anyone out there using it at this point, so that would work better for staff, and we're gonna do most of that work in-house ourselves, at least the plans are.
No funding issue.
No funding issue at all with doing that.
Kevin, I believe Vice Mayor Patterson's question was along the lines of the tennis court resurfacing will create, the striping and so forth are included
Yes.
for 3 pickleball courts at the Coombs Center.
That is correct.
Okay,
That
thank
is
you.
correct. Everything will be done turnkey up there. It'll have 2 tennis courts painted in, 3 pickleball courts, and the basketball court.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's an all-inclusive with that part.
Thank you and Derek very much.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the.
Do we need to,
We
do we
need to authorize that?
I'm
I
sorry.
thought I was gonna make a motion, but
We don't.
No, I was gonna second
We don't
it.
need anything from us except, we need to ask staff to do the necessary paperwork to bring a lease agreement back to us. Is that correct?
That's correct, and we will bring that back before you.
Okay, is that all right with everybody?
yes,
I'm
that's
satisfied.
All right. Okay, next item on the agenda is discussion regarding the deer population in the town of Abingdon. Chief Tony Sullivan is going to make a presentation to us.
We have a deer population in the town of Abingdon.
Thank you.
You doing a census, Tony?
I am counting it. Floyd, can you give me the, not that slide, the Excel file? Sorry. Yeah, when this came up a few months ago, I started digging into numbers. Of course, the first thing one of the benefits of experience is a lot of times, as Solomon says, there's nothing new under the sun, and you sort of retread what you've done before. One of the things that always comes up is safety, motorist safety.
Don't I remember that you had some experience with this in Bedford?
A little bit,
One
yeah, a
time?
little bit. And they're actually doing urban hunting now. When I was there, we were paying the police to shoot them off duty, but that didn't work out too well either. And flip back to the other sheet, Floyd. There you go, sheet 1. So I started looking at safety from a motorist perspective, because that's the first thing that's what you paid me for, to give you the risk numbers, basically. So I went back to 2004, and I graphed every traffic crash that we had, and then I graphed every deer crash we had. Now, the big green field that you see are vehicle crashes or single vehicle crashes. The very small orange field that you see at the very bottom are the number of crashes related to deer. So from January 1, 2004 to July 1, 2019, we're talking almost a 15-year period of time. We've had 94 deer-related crashes that have been reported. Now, I will give you, there are some people that hit deer and just go home. I get it. But we've had 94 that have been reported. So basically, if you divide the total number of months by the total number of crashes, you get 0.5 deer crashes a month. A half a deer crash a month is what we're dealing with. So that won't speak to any urgent action on the part of police to reduce traffic hazards to cull the population of deer. I mean, the numbers just aren't there. Of course, numbers don't mean anything. I provided parking ticket numbers and was called a liar not too long ago, so we'll go with other evidence.
You're just giving them the
Who
facts.
called you a liar, Tony?
All I can do is give you the numbers.
You're just giving the facts, man.
I can't do anything but give you the numbers. I guess the questions for you all as a board are, the first question, is this a government issue or is this a private property owner issue? Now, I can't answer that for you. You all are the ones that are the elected officials. But is this a government action? Does it need to be a government action, or does it need to be private property? And if you say it is a government action, then I naturally went to, well, is this a local government proposition or is this a state government proposition? Because the deer herd does not belong to the town of Abingdon. The deer, by statute, belong to the Commonwealth. They're not ours, even though they live here. And then you look at what the potential problems are. I think Mr. Jett was very spot on when he said, yeah, basically part of the things that you get by living in this part of the country are deer in your yard. Deer are going to eat your hedges. You're going to see possum. You're going to see bear. You're going to see this stuff walk through your yard. And then I think of potential problems, which I think is the other reason you pay me, is to point out problems. Mr. Jett went through most of our presentation. You're gonna end up with, if we have urban archery, you're gonna end up with deer who wander on property that's not approved to hunt. Then you're gonna have disputes with landowners and hunters. Can we go get the deer? No, you can't. And who's gonna dispose of the deer? Who's gonna treat the deer, or whatever? There are inherent issues with this happening. You end up with, also, if we choose to allow people, whatever parameter we put, whatever distance we put, when we choose to allow people to fire projectiles, there's always an accident. I mean, the law of risk management says we talk about it to reduce the risk, and we're talking about it because we know unchecked it will happen. So what accidents are we willing to mitigate? Who will carry the workload for enforcement for this? Well, the state, to remedy this problem, they enabled the code to say, okay, well, localities can do this. And there are quite a few localities that have taken advantage of this. And I can provide you a list of those localities. I have it with me. But the workload's on the police to do this. And you need to ask yourself, do you want the police to be involved in the gaming regulation business? And it's just as simple as this. When somebody wakes up and there's a deer laying in their yard and they didn't put it there, they're going to call the police. They're not going to call the game commission. And I'm not whining. Yeah, I am whining. I don't have enough officers as it is, quite honestly. And we're getting ready to open a new shopping center, which in addition to all the good things it brings, as we can tell from Walmart, also brings bad things. Quite honestly, I'm going to be stretched to police that for a while until we get our manpower piece addressed. And then I guess the last thing is, well, if we can't do anything, can we provide alternatives? And I took the liberty to provide, and I can publish it in many forms. I can publish it online. We can put it on Facebook pages. I took the liberty, I'm going to you got to share. I took the liberty of researching some of the more common ways that people deter deer, and that they're both natural and unnatural. One of the most effective unnatural ones, actually two of them are on the very first page, that scarecrow sprinkler system, which is an infrared motion sensor hooked up to a sprinkler, and as soon as something breaks it, the sprinkler goes off. That night guard, that little blinking red light at the bottom, those sell for about $40 a piece. Those are solar operated, and at night they look like predator eyes blinking back and forth. And these work 24 hours a day. The next page of that, there's natural deterrents.
I like the dog.
Yeah, well, of course, you're a Basset Hound person. Of course you do. I like that dog.
Is that your dog?
No.
My dog
Is it the
just like
skunk?
It's sort of like my dog. The natural deterrent pieces are things that people can do, things such as Irish Spring soap in their garden, pepper. I mean, there's a myriad of things. But one of the things that I found in the research was you have to start early in the deer season, so you have to start about March with the treatment, and you've got to keep it up. And you got to do it continually, and then once the deer get used to whatever that nuisance is, that smell or whatever, they'll avoid the problem. So ultimately, if a problem is brought to you by 2 or 3 people who are having problems with their vegetation being chewed down to a nut, I mean, we've all been there, do we want to look at hunting regulations, or do we want to publish something and say, look, here are many ways that you can do this? I'll be happy to put that stuff out anyway, to sort of lead people in that direction. Ultimately, though, if you decide urban archery, you decide there's a lot of other things you have to decide, and that's the restrictions that you put on it, which, we can talk about restrictions as well. But one of the things that I heard from a lot of people, well, if we do it, we need to do it in areas that aren't so populated. So I took the liberty, hey Floyd, can you put up that map? I took the liberty of having Emmy, our fabulous GIS lady, I said, Emmy, can you plot me every lot in town that's 3 acres or more? Which, 3 acres would just be a start. I mean, you could say, okay, if we want to do it, we'll make it 5 acres. What you're going to be seeing is every lot that's 3 acres or more in town. One of the things that you're going to see is, in gray, is 3 acres or more. If it's white, it's less than 3 acres. One of the things that I found, interestingly enough, most of our deer collisions occur in the areas that are white, not the areas that are gray. The majority of our deer complaint, deer herd, deer crashes would be in the areas that are too densely populated to allow hunting anyway. So it gets back to the point Mr. Jett made, and the fact of the matter is, one of our problems is people aren't hunting like they used to, period. So the number of hunters are down, and we don't have a predator. We don't have mountain lions here to take down deer. We don't have wolf packs that take down deer. But Mr. Jett made a very valid point, and I think he's spot on. If we start culling the population in here, nature abhors a vacuum. So what's going to happen is you're going to get more deer that just come in to fill the empty spots. We've all seen that happen when we've had a nuisance groundhog. Well, if you had a nuisance groundhog in your property, you get rid of it. What happens 30 days later?
They
You got
come
another
back,
nuisance
2,
groundhog.
4, 6.
Yeah, so these are the things that you have to take into consideration. I've talked a lot and really haven't said anything that you probably don't already know. Do you have questions or comments? And just so you know, I have contacted several of these agencies on the list, and none of them have experienced any real problem with the urban archery, because They put heavy stipulations in there, you must hunt from 10 or 12 feet, you gotta shoot down, you can't
Down.
shoot within 100 yards of any structure or sidewalk, or da, 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 da. But oddly enough, the ones that talked about some of the issues, and it was one of the issues that Mr. Jett raised as well, was that, non-hunters have deer end up in their yard, and then you end up with a contact situation between a hunter and non-hunter over a deer that's laying in somebody's yard. Brings me full circle to, well, who's gonna answer that call? Well, that's gonna be us. You know, so, those are the issues mainly that occur with it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
Do you have, council have questions?
Go ahead.
I would hope that you would take every possibility and every step to disseminate this information, because
I
think
can, if
it's
that's
really
the wish of council, I'll be happy to, I can put that on our Facebook page, if you go on the town's Facebook pages, we'll be happy to do that.
good.
I'd like for you to also to take this into consideration. I did a little homework too to add to your home remedies. And I spoke with Mr. Ron Stevenson, who's with Ogata. They have Old Glade Spring Tractor Association, and he let me know that a gentleman that had two 20 by 20 garden plots over at Fairview this year, the community garden. What he did was he filled like a mason jar or one of those quart bottles that are kind of narrow at the top. And then this is a little chicken water down at the bottom here, and you take that mason jar and you connect it here, and then you turn it up. Instead of putting it down like the chickens would drink the water, this is kind of a vent. So you put your ammonia in there, and that ammonia stays in there the whole summer. And he said this gentleman's gardens were not touched, and they were beautiful. Couldn't find any track of deer in there at all. And also these come in the plastic version, but I'd say that the metal version and the glass would last longer. Maybe you could put some of this other stuff in there, the peppermint, mix it with water, and put a whole bottle of peppermint, oil of peppermint in there, and that might work in that jar.
Well, you know, and there are, this isn't a new problem. I mean, people have been having deer eat their crops for years. I mean, so it's just who's responding, you know, we just live in a time, of course, opinion, we just live in a time where everybody wants the government to fix their problems.
Yeah.
And that's just not where we are with a lot of issues.
So if you want this, I'll let you have it. You can put it in with your, or can you wanna do
I
it
can-
online?
I can do
Okay.
some stuff up.
Another
The-
thing I found interesting, too, excuse me,
No, go
Cindy,
ahead.
were you through?
Not yet, but go
I'm sorry.
ahead. Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Well, the other
Interrupt.
thing I was gonna say is, where do we draw the line? If you wanna know some other statistics without figures, possums, you know, are in this area. Then we have raccoon, we have groundhog, and those beautiful black vultures that I just dearly love, which I don't love them, I'm just kidding. But anyway, the raccoons have eaten my chickens and done away with them, so I really don't try to have chickens anymore, but because of that.
Now,
Possums.
Cindy, let me interrupt you.
Yes.
Citizens get to complain, but council members don't.
I'm just saying, where do we draw the line? That's my point. And possums, thank you, Wayne, I appreciate that, Mr. Craig. The possum situation is, possums carry diseases, and, they're terrible diseases for horses. If, when they excrete this disease and the horse picks it up through eating, if they have a disease called EPM, and it's a neurological problem. They suffer dearly, greatly, and then they die. It's a horrible death. And these vultures are driving me bananas, and the groundhogs are there, and the horses could step in them and break a leg. So where do we draw the line? Do we not have deer? Do we kill all the groundhog? I'd love to kill the black vultures, but we're not allowed, and I never will, so, because I'm not gonna get in trouble.
Yeah, that's a federal offense, don't do
Yeah,
that.
no, I'm not gonna do that. But see, I'm not gonna do it, I promise. But anyway,
Well,
I'll
here's-
just put up with them.
You know, here's the thing,
Yeah,
we're talking about a natural process.
yeah.
You know, and the vultures, as much as you don't like them, if we didn't have them, there'd be rotten carcasses all around us.
That's right.
The possums, as much as they create a problem.
They eat that
Possums eat
stuff.
about 1,000 ticks every month,
Mhm.
because that's it's one of the things they eat. We would be overrun with tick-borne diseases if it weren't for possums. So everything does work in balance. And I think, to your point, how far do we wanna push until we kick something out of balance?
Yeah,
So, you know, there are things that we just live with, that, you know, it's just part of nature.
and I've learned to live with all this, you know.
Vultures are fun to live with.
I
I
find
was
it-
thinking about this this thing for, excuse me 1 second. I was thinking about this little number that you showed right here, the where's that little garden spray?
That's on the front, the
Oh, right
scarecrow.
here. That, would that work for the vultures or not? Are you not allowed to do that?
Well, we, from law enforcement, we're only allowed to harass vultures at roost, which means in the tree. Now, I don't know what private property owners can do, because that's really a federal issue, because that's a federally protected bird.
Well, I'll ask them.
They allow us to harass them if they're in a tree, but your issue is they're not in the tree. This morning I came by, and I think they were all waiting on me to run by and have a heart attack, because they were all sitting on the bridge at the creeper trail, and they know I run by there every morning. And then I was gonna be breakfast, I think, but, yeah, you know, the birds, that's another issue that I've dealt with for too long. Those birds, in the morning, especially when it's chilly, they like to get to the ground, they like to find a sunny spot, and you'll see them standing on the fence post or in the yard with their wings spread, soaking up to get warm enough to start flying. That's where I caught them this morning. That's where they look the most ominous. You know, they're sitting there on the fence post waiting on you to come by. But yeah, it's here again. It's just one of those things that
I know that we have to live with.
if we didn't have them, we'd have dead carcasses everywhere.
Yeah, and I'm not complaining. Go ahead.
Did you say that those deers belong to the deer population belongs to the state?
Ultimately, because they're the ones that fine you for the deer when you take them out of season. You have
They
to pay
regulate them.
per deer.
Well, let's-
When you get fined for illegal hunting, you have to reimburse the state for a deer. So ultimately, I mean, they can't belong to anybody, and the state's the one billing for them in fines.
Could we write the Fish and Game people and tell them to come take care
I
of their
wish
pets?
we could.
Well, I talked to them in Roanoke, and they said that the police could do sharpshooting, and I'm like,
No.
Did that while in Bedford, when I left Bedford.
yeah.
We did it, it was very controversial. We donated meat to people, which was also a concern for donating the meat. It was very controversial. They later, after I left, they later adopted the urban archery program. And they're still using it. Here again, they've got some pretty hefty restrictions on it, so not real, I don't really know how many deer they cull each season, because the restrictions are pretty tight. I mean, you know, I think you've got some of those restrictions sent to you, depending on what you want to enact, and it would have to be that tight for it to be workable.
Okay, any more questions?
No, but thank you for all that information.
Thank you very much.
Tony. You did a good job. Council, I have a pretty strong feeling about the way council should operate. I think we should give citizens an answer when they request something. So I'm gonna make a motion that we decline to enact urban archery ordinance and authorize Mr. Sullivan to put the information regarding protecting your property from deer on the website.
I'm gonna second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? Kim, call roll, please.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Ms. Quetch?
Aye.
Mr. Webb?
Aye.
Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
Mayor Craig?
Aye. We have some matters not on the, a request for matters not on the agenda. Jane Deering has a matter of some urgency to discuss with us.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing us a few minutes of your time. Barter announced, or they haven't made the formal announcement, but we have been made aware that they are opening their season considerably later than usual. Typically, they open stage 2 about mid-February, followed quickly by stage 2 opening. This year, they're opening stage 2 March 26th and main stage April 2nd. That's a considerable difference. We know that when barter is in season, it has a positive impact on almost every business in town, particularly restaurants and retailers. And likewise, there is an effect when they're not in session. So this will have an impact on our revenue in a significant way. It also presents an opportunity. We met with Rick Rose. He understands that he's got space that's very valuable, and we have talked to him about using that space. We also had the fortuitous event that the Ken Burns country music documentary Tennessee paid $1 million to bring that documentary, to make that documentary possible. They did that knowing that there would be 40 million viewers worldwide of that documentary, and studies show that visitation in areas that Ken Burns' highlights goes up 300% over the following 3 years. And we're already seeing some people who saw the documentary and had just on impulse come to see us. This is all fine and good. So we've got a need to fill. We've got a space that's excellent for music, and we would like to ask council to consider as a gift to the town, as a way to provide things for residents and for tourists to do, and to help the restaurants and retailers to consider a music event that would capitalize on all of this, called the Abingdon Sessions. It would take place the last 3 weekends in February, starting the 14th, 15th, which is Valentine's Day. That's a really important time for us to offer something for our visitors. Abingdon's intercept studies and market studies have shown that we are a very popular romantic weekend getaway.
Oh,
So to
my
have
goodness.
something, yeah, Wayne, that's why you're here, isn't it, Mayor? I'm
I
sorry.
love romance. I don't know about you.
So we start the 14th and 15th, then the next weekend, the 21st and 22nd, and then the last weekend, it is leap year, the 28th and 29th. We're happy to answer any questions.
Sounds exciting.
We're pretty excited. You know, sometimes you have to look for the silver lining in the opportunity, and this is an important opportunity for us.
Okay, council, any more questions of Jane?
What's it cost?
The cost will not exceed. Sarah has had experience working with Micah Davidson, who is owner of a company called Midwood Entertainment. And do you want to talk a little bit about Midwood?
Sure. So the way this would work would be to hire a promoter or a company who does this all around the country, the Southeast, to put together the programming as we direct it. And that would be so that it could be sort of a plug and play, not take out much resources from the tourism office as that
And
goes.
Sarah, you've worked with him.
Midwood Entertainment is the talent buyer for Rhythm and Roots, also working with the Bristol Sessions Hotel for their venue and their music space, and up and down festivals all over the Southeast.
Thank you. So he has experience in this area, and that's important because we have a particular niche we're trying to fill. To contract with Midwood Entertainment, the expenses would not exceed $120,000. We think it'll be well below that. And then the revenue back to the town would be in ticket sales. The ticket sales, the last 2 years of Thursday Jams, and we can't, not Thursday Jams, January Jams. January Jams is a known entity, so we can't really base it on that. This January 2019, we netted $75,700. The year before in ticket sales, we netted $58,000 in ticket sales. We are being very conservative in thinking that $60,000 in ticket sales is a conservative estimate.
So would the idea be that you contract with the barter and then contract with this promoter?
We would the town of Abingdon and tourism would contract directly with Midwood Entertainment, so we would maintain control of the talent process. Barter is merely the location. We did meet with Rick because we definitely wanted to make sure that he supported that this activity is. The box office, all advance sales, all ticket sales will be handled by barter. That's what they do. They're really good at it. They manage it really well. Our experience in the past with January Jams, it just works. The night of the performances, their front of house people would all be there. Concessions, it does help barter in that they would get all the concession sales, all of the alcohol sales, and then they also, part of the agreement is they get 20% of the merchandise that the artist sells.
So that's all in an agreement?
It's all in the agreement.
And that's
Jane,
all.
Could you
And
give us, excuse me.
No, you
Cindy,
go
I'm sorry.
ahead, please.
Just give us the reasoning that you used in bringing this to us. What will happen if we don't
Well,
take action?
you
Just give
know
us
that
your
tourism
opinion.
lives and breathes and monitors the meals and lodging tax every month. And it is about 14% of the total operating budget, general fund operating budget of the town. It is significant. We also know that before January Jam started, and Barter was dark in January, that we had most of our restaurants closed. There was no reason for them to be open. January Jams came along, and I'm happy to say that some of our best restaurants are now open on the weekends. They see the value of it. My fear is that with Barter essentially dark, or Barter dark, essentially Abingdon would be dark, and that our restaurants and retailers would not be generating revenue. It would hurt the restaurants and retailers. There may be some that cannot survive the first quarter of the year. If we lose one restaurant, we put X amount of people out of work, and we eliminate that future revenue stream. Now, in looking at the history of the meals and lodging tax, and I'm going to concentrate on meals because that's generally where the bulk of the income comes in that time of year, there is $40,000 historically. The first full month after Barter has been back open, we see a $40,000 increase in meals tax. And that's the first full month after they've been open, and that's historically speaking. So it won't take long to make up the investment, and if we don't invest in this, what is the real cost going to be?
And I understand this is kind of an urgent, timeline-wise.
Well, it is urgent because we're talking about mid-February. Sarah has been working on January Jams now for months and months and months. It's kind of a perpetual process at this point. So we're behind the 8 ball with advertising for it. However, Midwood Entertainment, that's another reason we vetted him. He can hit the ground running, to use a cliche. So we've got that in place. We've got a marketing mechanism in place. We're going to be announcing January Jams November 4th, so we can do this on the heels of that. We don't want to confuse the two events because we don't know if this time slot will ever be available again. This may be a truly one-off event. But yes, it is a matter of urgency because we have got to start booking that talent now. We've got to start marketing now.
Jane, you've worked for Barter before and obviously been on this council. The idea, I guess, is that Mr. Rose doesn't think that he can make any money in February, and I guess they've got more expenses and startup costs and all that sort of thing to put on an actual show. That I take it the idea from the town's perspective would be these are one-off things that are run by somebody else and don't have the sunk costs that he would have where we can make money where he couldn't make money. Is that the idea?
Well, I can't answer as far as what Barter's perspective is. What I can say is that Abingdon has built a brand for music. Barter is a very desirable venue for artists to perform. I know Sarah has talked to them, and they are very excited about being there. We have a good market for it. And again, the Ken Burns documentary is playing in to use the investment that's already there to kind of seize that impetus. I can only speculate why Barter is opening up late.
Jane, I understand from Jimmy Moretti that you had a conversation, or that the staff had a conversation with Chuck about the finances. I'm sure you've been on council. We don't want to engage in deficit spending. Do we have the means to do it? Does the staff think we have the means to handle this? Chuck, you may want to address that.
It's going to cost $120,000, and we're going to get ticket sales of $60,000, which leaves the town on the hook for another $60,000.
One of the things
to save $40,000.
I was getting ready to say I can address part of that. I can't address all of it, but
There is a line that you, within the council as far as contractual services is concerned that had been used previously for other things that you no longer need it for. So those monies could be earmarked for part of that. Jane's done a good job about some of her events will come in under budget. She may have roughly $10,000 savings there. You add the 20 and the 10, you're up to 30, and 160 minus 30, you're looking at a $30,000 that me and Jimmy would eventually have to come up with.
And that's if the ticket sales don't
Yeah.
exceed our conservative estimates?
Yeah, exactly. If
That's
the
what
ticket
I'm-
sales
okay.
exceeds it, then, that just reduces that number.
And
You expressed just for $40,000 for the meal to replace that. Al, I'm really worried that some of our restaurants and retailers won't make it through that first quarter of the year.
Yeah, I am too.
And actually, it's more like a third of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And if we lose one of those businesses, the ripple effect of those employees being out of business or those employees being out of a job without a paycheck at all and losing that future revenue stream and having to then invest in attracting a new business to be set up, that's the real ripple effect.
So there's more to it than the raw numbers would.
Yes, sir.
Would indicate, yeah.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. I agree.
And we haven't used any of our council contingencies.
This doesn't affect your all's council contingency. This is in your all's main
budget.
line budget item.
But we could.
Yeah, you could, yes. Oh, by all means, you could, but I wasn't gonna touch, y'all still got your 75,000 or whatever.
If you and Jimmy can't find it somewhere,
Yeah, we'll let you know, but I feel like we can, if we get, like Derek said, we'll see where we're at ticket sales, and it may be less than that we gotta come up with. So, I think it's.
sounds like we need action tonight if we're gonna do any, or today if we're gonna do anything.
I just wanted to finish up what I
Oh,
wanted
I'm
to
sorry,
say, if you
Susan.
don't mind, before we
No,
go into that.
I'm sorry.
That's okay, you didn't know. Couple things, Ms. During, I just want to reiterate to the public that there's three things that the barter is gonna make money on, and that's in-house. None of the monies that we contribute, because we already fund the budget, the barter, $200,000 a year.
There is rent. There's an additional cost. $1,000 per, there's $6,000, $1,000 per performance, per night. That is to cover, the box office is gonna be working for months, booking these tickets, entering the shows, providing the descriptions. They're gonna staff the front of house. There'll be wear and tear on the building. So that's to cover
Okay,
those
so
sweeping costs.
Would we enter into a new lease with Barker, or we would amend the existing lease that we have?
What we asked, when we met with Rick, we just asked if the same terms that we currently use for January jams, in the interest of time and expediency, if those same terms for January jams could be applied to this Abingdon Sessions series.
And we can talk about this separately, but I've got concerns about agreements and Procurement Act and that sort of thing, and make sure that we do those right, if that's what council's pleasure is. But if we're talking about spending $120,000 and we're talking about leasing property, then we need to talk about the mechanism of that.
I believe that building belongs to the town.
Mm-hmm. They lease it
So
for
we-
$1 a
We
year.
don't really need to lease our own property, do we?
Well, or you can consider it just paying for the wear and tear and their staff time for
Yeah,
the
okay.
whole process.
No, I'm sure some kind of agreement is.
You're gonna spend $120,000 on a contract?
That would include artist fees, and there would,
For
you are
services.
hiring a
And
company.
if we were saying that's the sole source, then I guess it's not, or they have some cooperative procurement or some other exception. But
I would argue that it would be a sole source, simply because they do all the booking
yeah,
for.
we don't need to talk about all that right now, but
Okay.
those are my procedural I have
So
procedural concerns.
what, if we decide we want to, the council decides they want to do that, we make it subject to,
make sure that we do
Working
it
the-
legally.
Yeah, working the agreement out.
Yeah, okay.
But to finish,
Let's try to be
finish, can I
Subject-
finish?
Subject to it meeting, legal requirements.
Okay, getting on with what I'm trying to say, and I'm glad that you brought that up, Mr. Bell, thank you.
I hadn't even thought about
So,
that.
we're gonna enter into this agreement possibly, the three things that you mentioned that they were gonna make money on were inside sales, and then they're gonna get the $6,000, and that's all.
They get, all their own concessions, I mean.
Yeah, I got that.
bar-
The
barter
concessions and
Concessions and their own merchandise. I know
20%
that,
they make on that,
Barter makes in a year $200,000 on their souvenirs.
right,
They're gonna get all the alcohol sales.
right.
They're gonna get 20% of the artist merch,
Mhm.
and then they're going to get, yes, the $1,000.
Okay, and then the last thing that I wanted to cover is, would you please explain to the public what Ken Burns' documentary is so they'll understand?
Has anybody seen it?
Yes.
One, two, okay. Ken Burns is probably one of the best-known documentarians for American history. He's done baseball, he's done the Civil War, I think he did the Vietnam War, and he just released Ken Burns' country music documentary. And the first few hours of it concentrate on Southwest Virginia. And the Carter family, Jimmy Rogers, the Stanley brothers, and coincidentally, all three of those families have been highlighted in Barter Productions. We have kind of rights to that story and that legacy. So the fact that Tennessee Department of Tourism, or Tennessee invested $1 million to fund that project, knowing that 40 million people were gonna see it, knowing that tourism to the area, and we're right across the state line, we've got Macy, I mean, we've got those locations that that first episode talks about. We will be getting that traffic. We already are seeing people who've just taken off because they've been inspired. Does that adequately?
Okay, yeah, that's great, thank you.
Okay.
All right, well,
Okay, Councilman, anything else? Okay, what's your pleasure? What do you wanna do?
I would say, just to preface this, I think tourism is incredibly important in Abingdon. And while I am a conservative budgeter by nature, I do think sometimes you have to take a little bit of risk in order to take care of the town, take care of the businesses, so on and so forth. With that being said, I would make a motion that the council authorize the town manager to work with the director of the Abingdon Convention and Visitors Bureau to offer Abingdon sessions on February 14th, 15th, 21st, 22nd, 28th, and 29th, with expenses not to exceed $120,000. And I would like to throw in there, all subject to the town attorney and manager reviewing and approval of the contract.
Okay, motion by Mr. Webb. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Ms. Quetch. Any discussion? Kim, call roll, please.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Ms. Quetch?
Aye.
Mr. Webb?
Aye.
Ms. Patterson?
aye.
Mayor Craig?
Aye. Thank you. very
Thank
much.
you very much. Mr. Bell, can we talk immediately, because time is ticking. Thank you very
Jane, I
much.
want to thank you all for
Yes,
being
thank you.
Thank
proactive and letting us know. I know this came up on short notice.
It did come up on short notice. I'm not sure when Barter will make the formal announcement. I know they're announcing their 2020 season on the 24th at 10 a.m., so should be part of that. When restaurants have gotten word of it, you can kind of see their face kind of fall. So thank you. They will appreciate your investment. Thank you.
Council, Jason Boswell brought to my attention that there is a contract that's ready to be awarded so that we can move on with some construction. I suggest we take that up on the matters not on the agenda, keep things moving. Is that all right with everybody?
Yes,
Fantastic.
that's fine, great.
Would you like me to discuss it, Mr. Mayor?
No, just give us the facts.
I'll give you the facts. Around March, we started the zoning update of the entire zoning ordinance. I think you all are familiar with that. We were working in conjunction with Mount Rogers Planning District Commission, and they did a great job. But when Jimmy came on board, He decided that we needed a comprehensive update of the entire ordinance along with the subdivision ordinance. So we decided to part ways with Mount Rogers and thank them for their efforts. And we would like to enter into an agreement with the Berkeley Group off of a cooperative procurement agreement with them to do the entire zoning ordinance and subdivision ordinance update. That's the
And
facts, Mr. Mayor.
The background to that is we've worked with the Berkeley Group before. They helped us with the executive search and have done some other things. They responded to a cooperative procurement RFP last year, I believe, and it incorporates a number of different services and is an exception to the Procurement Act. If there is something that is cooperatively procured, then other localities can join into that cooperative procurement without going through without going through the bidding process themselves. This RFP that they responded to specifically includes revising and reviewing zoning and subdivision ordinances, so we can tack on to that cooperative procurement with this agreement with them. We've already reviewed the contract. Berkeley has agreed, so we just need council to sign off on that.
Do we need to let the public know what the money is that's gonna cost? I think that should be addressed.
That was my question. Is it in your budget to, I was under the impression that we were working with a sign ordinance.
Yes, sir, we are. That's what we would like to tackle first is the sign ordinance.
And that's within your budget now, is that correct?
Yes, sir. I've got a text from Mr. Moraney saying that he had money available to start the project.
I move we turn this over to the Berkeley Group for revising the ordinances as Jason suggested.
I would authorize the town manager to enter into that agreement.
Yes, sir. That's exactly what I was saying.
I'll second
That's what I thought you
that.
said.
Okay, motion by Mr. Bradley, second by Vice Mayor Patterson. Any discussion?
We all worked with the Berkeley Group as a council. I just want to say that they are a wonderful group to work with. They're very
Fantastic
competent.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm happy that, this is gonna be done in that way as well. Not saying anything bad about what we started doing, but I'm very happy that, we're gonna do this. And I'm looking forward to getting everything updated and changed.
I think that Mount Rogers was very helpful in
They were.
the areas
Yeah.
that they were
Yes.
experts in.
I can't
and
say
that-
enough nice things about Aaron Sizemore.
Oh, absolutely.
Fantastic,
Yeah.
fantastic guy.
Well,
But they rightly sort of
Yeah.
deferred these particular things, and something that the mayor certainly is very interested in getting resolved, and I think the rest of the council is too. And that they have
Yeah.
expressed that they're experts in helping us do that, and hopefully won't be in a situation that we've talked about several times before, that we're not recreating the wheel, that they've done this in other places and can mesh all the things together so we have a cohesive sign ordinance and zoning ordinance and subdivision ordinance that we've been looking for.
And I'd like to say, to Aaron Sizemore, thank him for his help and what he's done so far, and for the council and collective, that we thank him for what he's done.
They're starting with the sign ordinance.
Yes, sir.
That's a really weak link. So
Yes.
it needs, it's the one that needs to be the poster child for all this.
All right, I've lost track of where we are. We've got a motion and a
I made a
second.
motion.
Yeah,
And a second.
And-
Yep.
Okay. Any further discussion? Kim, call a roll, please.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Ms. Quetch?
Aye.
Mr. Webb?
Aye.
Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
Mayor Craig?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, sir.
That was concise facts you gave us. Council, we had on our agenda, and I skipped it purposely, but the closed session is a matter of explanation to the public. The matter that we anticipated coming up is not ready for action discussion in closed session, so with your permission, we'll dispense with that.
That's fine.
Okay, next item on the agenda is reports from council and staff. Start with you, Al. You want to make any report?
Why do we always start with me?
Oh, okay, let's start with Derek.
Thank you.
All I'll say is it's been a busy month so far.
Oh, Derek's been busy. I've been sleeping a while. Sitting here.
I've been busier than a bee.
Oh,
But, I will
Are you
say.
making any honey?
No, but I'll tell you who's gonna make some molasses in a minute. Okay.
You gonna make molasses?
No, I'm gonna go watch it.
Oh, okay.
All right, first of all, I'm not gonna worry about what I've done right now. I'm just gonna tell you what's going on here. And then I'll make my report at the other meeting, at our regular meeting. Poll transportation to the polls November the 5th for the election of the sheriff, and other Commonwealth attorney, et cetera. We will, actually, Mr. Morani has talked with District 3 with the governmental links transportation, Mr. Richardson. The buses will take passengers to the polls for November 5th election. And I'd like to know, I'd actually like to ask if it would be possible for the staff to let the public know this by Facebook, also website, and I know that they're gonna put signs up at the, closer toward the polling time, or the voting time. So I'd like to ask that if that's possible to be done.
Tony, will you, follow up with Jimmy on that?
Okay.
Thank you.
The other thing, I got, and the other item on the list here is I spoke with Miss Carol Doss today. She is with the Upper Tennessee River Roundtable. She has invited us to come to meeting on Tuesday, October 22nd at 9 a.m. at the Abingdon Community Center, where a funder of a grant will be announcing an award to a grant award to the Upper Tennessee River Roundtable. And they're going to be building a rain garden and an outdoor classroom at the Abingdon Community Center. And another amount of a grant will be announced for the Nature Conservancy at that time as well. And I did mention molasses, and Mr. Stevenson tells me that it's sorghum, but I call it molasses. But anyway, the Old Glade Spring Tractor Association will be making molasses. They're going to be pressing out the juice, so to speak, on Friday afternoon, this Friday at 5 p.m. Then they're going to cook it and boil it down on Saturday at 8 a.m. and it's probably going to come off about 1:30 or 3, 1:30 to 3, he said. So I just want to invite the public to go to come to these things, and also for the Abingdon Community Center Fund grant, they can go up there and watch that as well. Also, Ogata has 2 rows of turnips at Fairview. If you want to pick all you want, go up there and pick all you want and take them home and cook them. So that's all I have for that right now.
Cindy, you don't pick turnips, do you?
Well, you pull them.
Oh.
Yeah, just better be careful, because if you pull them too hard, you can fall down and break your hip.
I don't know much about farming, so I just.
You pull turnips out of the ground, and you can also cook the greens.
Oh,
Turnip
I know about turnip
greens.
greens.
Yeah.
My mother used to make them.
Right.
All right, Donna.
I'd just like to say thank you to all the staff. You are the ones that do all the work.
So you haven't been doing any work?
Well, I've been having fun at what I do, so.
All right, Al. Are you ready now?
Yes,
All right.
it appears that I have been to several Veterans Park meetings and the Planning Commission, and actually had time to go somewhere on a weekend this time, so.
Well, tell us about that.
No.
Well, we all know you've been naughty now.
Well, maybe he just didn't like where he went. I don't know.
All right, on that note, we'll adjourn if it's all right with everybody.
Amen.
That's fine.